Hello everyone. Today I just want to go through a few complexion techniques using the Fenty Pro Filter Soft Matte Longwear Foundation and a few other Fenty products as well to go with it. So let's just get into it and let's start with prepping the skin. I've done all my normal skincare as I would usually, and I'm going to go in with the Pro Filter Mattifying Primer. Now I think a lot of people skip primer, and I feel like sometimes primer is a little bit misunderstood. With primer, you almost want a veil of product. You don't really want it to be like hanging around too much on the skin. So I am going to use it on my full face. And I'm just going to let it dry down and almost like become part of the skin, you know? And in the areas where I'm personally quite oily, in the areas where I need a little bit more mattifying, I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit more of a primer and just add it to those areas. What I personally really like to do with primer as well is make sure that it's really pushed into the skin. So gently, but also with a little bit of pressure, I'm going to push into those areas where I need that little bit more help with my oilier skin. I feel like if you find that your primer isn't working, maybe try using less and doing this kind of like pushing technique into the skin, because you don't want it as like a layer, you know, on your face. You want it to be almost like your skin. So let's go in with the Pro Filter Soft Matte Longwear Foundation. I'm using the shade 210. I'm going to use the 115 foundation brush. I absolutely love using big brushes like this for liquid foundation because you get that pressure of like a beauty sponge, but you get the blendability of a brush. So you get this full coverage with a really natural finish. I always start from the middle of the face. On me personally, that's where I have the most redness and the most discoloration. So I want to even that out first and then make my way to the outer edges of the face. I make my way up to the forehead last, just because that's kind of like my least problematic area, I guess. So on Fenty's website, there is a virtual try-on for this foundation, but also there's a shade matching quiz, and it's extremely easy to use, and there's a lot of visual cues there as well. So you kind of choose like a depth range, like light, medium, dark, and then you can go into those options and go even further into your skin tone by selecting pictures of other people that you are most similar in skin tone to. So it's incredibly useful to see actual skin tones rather than just the swatches of a product. Fenty have also just came out with a mini version of a Pro Filter Matte Foundation. Now here's why I love having the choice of choosing a mini version over the whole bottle. For example, I personally like to use different foundations, so knowing that I have a smaller size that I can actually get through, actually use the whole thing without wasting product, means that I can go from my mini Pro Filter to say eavesdrop or something like that and go backwards and forwards and not worry about opening one and it expiring and me not using it in time and wasting my money, along with like other benefits of having a mini product, like it travels better, it doesn't take up as much room in the bag, for example, so it's going to be a lot easier for touch-ups also. And this is actually something I wish everyone would do, having the choice of using a smaller product over a bigger one. I would much rather go for the smaller one, knowing that I am going to get through and use up that whole product. Less wasteful. So now I'm going to go in with the Pro Filter Instant Retouch Concealer, and I'm going to use this shade first. This is 210, and it's a little bit closer to my own skin tone, because then I want to go in with something else to brighten. So what I want to do is even it out first, and then I'll go back in and add that brightness. I'm gonna use a 180 concealer brush. You can see it almost has like this rounded curve here. It's almost very close to a fingertip, to a finger point. So I'm gonna use that rounded curve to tap that product into place first. And just brighten all those areas that just need evening out. And I'm not taking it too far down. Concentrating on where I am a little bit deeper first. So for me, it's that inside corner here and this outside corner. And then I can just take any product that's left on my brush across the eye. So just to add a little bit more brightness on the inside corner and a little bit more highlight around there, I'm going to take the Bright Fix Eye Brightener. This is a shade Golden Ivory. I'm going to use the smallest amount first, literally like a tiny little dot. 2 dots there. We don't have to rush, we can always add more later. I'm just going to tap that in where I want a little bit more of a highlight. Concentrating right on that inside corner here. And then I'll just apply a little bit more where I see any darkness coming through. Tiny bit at a time. Just tapping. Okay, so let's add a little bit more depth and dimension to the face. So I'm going to go in with a Cheeks Out Freestyle Cream Bronzer. This is the shade Butter Biscuit. Doesn't quite have the same impact in an English accent. I'm actually going to use my foundation brush that I used before and just take the smallest amount. I'm going to start right up here, and I almost want that to melt in with a foundation. So because I really want like the most definition here, every time I go back into a compact and then back in, I start up here again, and then I slowly blend that product downwards. And I like to do patting like this because I feel like with a brush that's a little bit dense, if I was to go too crazy, I don't want it to interfere with the rest of the makeup. I'm going to take a tiny bit through the temple, and I kind of like to go through like where the arch of my brow is and take some up from there, just to kind of ensure I don't take it too far into my forehead. That's like my stop line, you know. Okay, so let's go in with a Cheeks Out Freestyle Cream Blush. This is a shade Cool Berry. I like my bronzer, blush, contour, highlight to kind of stack on top. So for example, my bronzer is never going to touch my highlighter, but I can do my blush touching both. So I want them to stack but never meet the 2 below. Just because I find they kind of like the shades don't tend to mix too well. So I'm actually just going to take my finger with a blush, quite pigmented, so I'm going to use a tiny bit at a time, and I'm just tapping out on the highest point of my cheekbones. The reason I'm using creams mainly for like bronzer and blush is because I just love the way they just melt into the skin and they almost become like part of your skin rather than looking like something that's just kind of like sitting on top, you know? So highlight, we have the KILLAWATT Freestyle Highlighter Duo. This is Mean Money and Hustler, baby. And what I'm gonna do is like a 3D highlight. So we're gonna take Mean Money first, and I'm using a 120 highlight brush, and I'm gonna get it on this flat edge here. Now what I mean by like a 3D highlight is to have highlight and then a point where it's super highlighted. So it's almost like diffused. So we can highlight all our usual places first. Then we're going to take Hustler Baby, which is this gold. I'm actually going to use an eyeshadow brush for this one. This is a 200 eyeshadow brush. And I'm just going to kind of tilt my head, and where the light would catch that point the most is where I'm going to concentrate that highlight, that extra highlight. So we have this whole highlighted area, but we have that one point of super highlight. So if you ever have like a highlighting compact and maybe you're slightly intimidated by a shade that is, you know, maybe more intense than what you used to, just use that technique where you concentrate it in one tiny little area, and it makes such a subtle difference, but a subtle, like quite effective difference as well. Okay, so let's just finish up the complexion with the INVISIMATTE blotting powder. I just use that in areas where I'm usually a little bit oily, and just under the eyes here to smooth everything out. I personally don't like too much, just a tiny bit at a time. So let's do some eyes, and then we'll come back and just re-mattify the skin because I like a matte skin. So for my eyes, I'm going to go with number 5 and number 9 in the Snap Shadows. So we'll take the shade Shoot Your Shot, do that through the socket first. Then I'm going to take the eyeshadow brush again with 200 and take Sherry Fairy. And blend that through the socket also. And then we'll take Pinot Please and just concentrate that right on the outside corners. And right tight on this inside corner. Okay, let's take Bellini Baby with our finger and just tap that all in the middle here. With a clean finger, just tap away the edges. I'm just going to finish up under the eyes using all the same shades in the same order again, from the lightest to the darkest. I'm just going to finish up the eyes with the full frontal mascara. Because this has like a flat side, you can slide it under your lash and then curve upwards like this to ensure you get right to that base of a lash. Zigzag and curl up. And then after you got right to those tips, you can literally hold the flat side against the lash. If you already have extremely curly lashes, you can always just take the flat side and go on top. and zigzag down, just to lay them a little bit flatter if that's what you want, but you know, we want curly lashes really. Finish up the eyes with some lashes. Okay, let's finish up with the Gloss Bomb in Glass Slipper. It smells amazing. And now we have a Fenty complexion. I am absolutely in love with the Pro Filter foundation. I think it is so incredibly comfortable on the skin. As somebody who is oily, who wants matte, but doesn't necessarily want like crazy coverage, to have a foundation that is so nice and buildable, but gives you great coverage from the get-go is such a luxury to have. And now to have a smaller size available, so I can see how I'm kind of feeling that day if I want something matte or if I want something a little bit more glowy on the skin. It just looks real. I just love the texture so much. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.